Thank you all for joining us today. We'll go ahead and get started. I will introduce Susan Dunn, one of our Women of Tocqueville chairs, to kick us off this morning.
Thank you, Brandon. Good afternoon, and welcome to Philanthropy in Action, leveraging time, talent, and treasure to improve child literacy, presented by Women of Tocqueville. Today we gather to not just talk about literacy, but to also imagine what is possible when a community comes together to lift every child. Whether you are here as a donor, volunteer, passionate advocate, or learner, your presence is part of the solution. As Brandon said, I'm Susan Dunn, and I'm the outgoing chair of Women of Tocqueville, along with Paula Gilberto, who is also here with us today, and you'll hear from her in just a minute. Before we begin, I would love to share a bit about Women of Tocqueville. I like to call it Women United 2.0, an opportunity to go deeper with, of course, your treasure, your time, your understanding of the challenges facing our community and what works, and how you can support what works with other like-minded women. The founding members of Women of Tocqueville expressed to Paula and to myself an interest in going deeper and being more connected to the issues our community members face. We do this in several ways, including giving, our voice through advocacy, and programs like this, our Town Hall series. I will now turn things over to Paula Gilberto, I'm proud to be a co-chair with her of Women of Tocqueville to review our agenda for today's program.
Thank you, Susan, and thank all of you who are joining us today for what we hope is going to be a very powerful hour. So you see the agenda on the slide. We want to talk a little bit about why our United Way has been committed to children's literacy and that generational commitment. You're going to have a phenomenal opportunity to meet national experts, local experts, to have it expertly moderated by a phenomenal volunteer, and then also to have an opportunity for a question and answer so we can have a really good conversation about it. This is what we hope our outcome is today, that it leaves you informed, inspired, and empowered to take action. So let's start. We want to take a look at what is happening for children in the communities that United Way of Central and Northeastern Connecticut serve. And to do this, I really want you to try and get a mental image in your head of a classroom, a third grade classroom, right? With at least 10 students, and we know certainly more. Well, if you're a child right here, right now, in my hometown of New Britain, chances are only one or two of you out of that class of 10 is going to be reading at grade level by the time you complete the third grade, right? Heartbreaking, isn't it? Not much better in Hartford. Great, in Manchester and East Hartford, okay, only 2 out of 3 children are being left behind. And while things may improve as we take a look at Enfield, Vernon, Newington, Bristol, isn't that great? But again, children are being left behind. And yet, look at West Hartford and Glastonbury, much better. But here's the thing, right? This is not about the ability of these children. This is about the challenge of access or lack of, and lack of opportunity, and clearly lack of support. These aren't just numbers. These are real children, our nieces, our nephews, the friends that we have, our neighbors' children, and all of these children have incredible potential waiting to be unlocked. But this is also not only a signal, but a siren to all of us, a call to action. We need to ensure that as a caring community, we make a difference in the lives of these children. We know what works. We know that with the right support, every child can thrive. And today we're going to explore what that transformation looks like. Let's talk a little bit about a national movement, the National Campaign for Grade Level Reading. And I just want to digress for a moment and to give you a little bit of the backdrop on this national campaign. And when I first learned about it, and dare I say, it was probably a good 20, 25 years ago. And while my memory may falter on certain things, it doesn't in terms of this pivotal conversation with Ralph Smith, who at the time was the executive vice president at the Anna E. Casey Foundation, a national foundation committed to positive outcomes for children and youth. Ralph was here in our area to do a visit for a Making Connections initiative. It was a 10-year initiative on the part of Casey Foundation, partnering with United Ways and other community organizations in the country. And their thought was, we can improve outcomes for children by strengthening families and strengthening neighborhoods. And Ralph was invited to speak at a conference that was happening at Central Connecticut State University, again in my hometown in New Britain. And George Bonmonday, our late president and CEO, and I were the ones that were driving Ralph to his various commitments and to this speaking engagement. So here he is, the executive vice president of the National Foundation. And as we're walking through a parking lot, he shares this nugget of an idea he has, that in his mind, third grade reading was the single greatest determinant of a child's future success. And we walked through that parking lot and he shared this concept and he shared what he felt was critical. And this one thing could make a profound difference for generations. Well, Ralph grew that belief into what is now the National Campaign for Grade Level Reading. It's a network of more than 350 communities, over 46 states and the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, the US Virgin Islands, and Canada. More than 5,200 local organizations and more than 500 state and local funders. And this includes 200 plus local United Ways, including our own. As Ralph would note, research, practice, and common sense all confirm that third grade reading proficiency is the first rung of what he would term as the success sequence. And that success sequence is what leads to a young person graduating from high school, ready for their next step, whether it's career or further education, to employment, to future earnings, to economic self-sufficiency. Why is this important? And to Ralph's point, why is it just common sense? Well, from birth to third grade, children are learning to read. At the start of the fourth grade, however, curriculum changes, and that child must know how to read to continue to learn. So birth to age 8, you are learning to read as a child, and then things change. And if you have not mastered reading at that point, you are going to fall behind. So what do we do about it? Well, I'm grateful that under George's leadership, Susan Dunn's leadership as the CEO, mine, and now with Eric Harrison as the president and CEO, we are continuing to embrace this developmental milestone because it does take multi-generations to commit to this. And there are 3 key tenets: early childhood education, right? The importance of school attendance and the importance of preventing summer learning loss. 3 legs to a stool. Think of it that way. Early childhood education, school attendance, and preventing summer learning loss. But under Susan, we launched another endeavor, a compatible piece to effective programming and partnerships with schools and community partners, and that was United Way Readers, pairing a trained volunteer with a kindergartner to third grader that was struggling with literacy skills. And over the course of a semester, that one-on-one relationship makes a difference, and we can prove that with solid data. Nonetheless, right, as much as all of this is super important, I just have to tell you how grateful I am for that parking lot conversation with that national thought leader. And I think of it every time I drive by that parking lot at the university. But now let's talk about what it's going to take to move this to action. Okay? So you can see here on this slide, we're talking about United Way readers. And again, that support of a caring adult, inspiring the love of reading, and how that benefits not only the child, but trust me, it enriches the life of volunteers as well. And over the course of a semester, a course of the full academic year, we have the data that shows literacy levels are improving. But the next piece I want to talk a little bit about is the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. And very similar to that one conversation with Ralph Smith about his concept, Dolly Parton's Imagination Library, started by our United Way, was a result of one conversation with another thought leader, Dr. Jim Schmerling from Connecticut Children. He and I had a great lunch, had a great conversation, and he talked about his experience with the Dolly Parton Imagination Library when he was in Tennessee and how he wanted to bring it to Connecticut. And I said, our United Way is in. And with the help of 2 other hospitals and incredible donors, we launched Dolly Parton's Imagination Library. Why is this important? Because from birth to age 5, children are receiving an age and culturally appropriate book mailed to their home. They build a home library, which is so important for that child's literacy level and also for the interaction with their parents. So it becomes more about family literacy. And again, started with a thought leader, started with a conversation, and how our United Way embraced it, started it, and grows it. So this is a huge thing for us. And as you can see from the volunteer pictured here and their 860 Cares t-shirt and the opening slide, we offer, or our United Way offers, a variety of volunteer activities on a quarterly basis, so you can get engaged as an individual on a quarterly basis or on a more regular basis if you would like to volunteer more frequently through that. Now, all of this is possible because of the caring commitment and ongoing commitment of individuals who want to give through their dollars as well as give through their time. And August is Make a Will Month. And just wanted to note that Susan and I are both committed to this. We both are members of this United Way's 1924 Society, making a commitment through will, through our bequests, that this United Way will have resources to carry it into the next centennial and beyond. So if you have questions about that, which we hope you do, we encourage you to contact Brandon Emerson or anyone else on the United Way team. Now, let's get into the program itself. Right? So going to have this incredible opportunity, you'll see them on the next slide, to meet our speakers. Our incredible speakers that represent not only a national perspective of what is possible and what is working, but also a local perspective with great examples right here in East Hartford. And we're truly honored that our panelists bring that lens. And we're also honored that today, my friend, my colleague, Jan Turner, is not only the moderator, but want to recognize Jan as the incoming chair of United Way Women of Tocqueville. She's also the vice president of partner engagement, personal insurance at Travelers, and beyond that, a consistent advocate for women, family, education, and the arts. She's the immediate past chair of Travelers Women and Allies Diversity Network, is a longstanding member of United Way's Women United's Leadership Council, and the Connecticut Women's Council. Jan served on the Finance Committee for this United Way, and in addition to all of that, she is a passionate artist and a certified coach. And with that, Jan, I humbly turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Paula, and I humbly accept. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. Very, very grateful to be here, to be stepping into Women of Tocqueville in this capacity, and to have the opportunity to lead this amazing panel. So before I introduce our panelists, I would like to share Just a little bit of history about the relationship that Travelers has had with United Way. So Travelers has been a longtime supporter of United Way, and just last year alone, Travelers employees raised $950,000 through our internal community connections campaign to support the United Way and its partner organizations across the country. So additionally, Travelers supports the United Way of Central and Northeastern Connecticut's annual Power of the Purse event, and our employees dedicate hundreds of hours volunteering throughout the Hartford region, including in support of child literacy advancement. So it's now my distinct honor to welcome our three distinguished panelists. First, we have Iola Fortune, who is Vice President of the Impact Team at United Way Worldwide. Iola provides oversight, strategic guidance, and support to team members managing key initiatives in education, economic mobility, and health. She leads United Way Worldwide's efforts to support local United Ways to integrate equity into their impact work by developing frameworks, strategies, peer learning, training opportunities, and developing resources and tools. She also helped lead the development of United Way's education roadmaps, which outline the critical strategies, implementation approaches, and potential roles that United Ways can play to improve educational outcomes, especially for at-risk youth in their communities. So welcome, Iola. And now I'd like to introduce Malai Amfahr, who is Senior Program Officer with the National Campaign for Grade Level Reading. So Malai has over 25 years of experience working in advocacy and community engagement in the nonprofit sector, primarily focused on youth. In her role as Senior Program Officer, she supports the Campaign for Grade Level Reading community coalitions across the network with connection, coaching, and facilitated learning opportunities across the shared agenda to ensure more hopeful futures for children. So prior to her role with the Campaign for Grade Level Reading, she was previously with United Way of Story County for over 4 years, where she provided oversight of their work in education, including leadership of Story County Reads, the CGLR community. She has served on several committees and nonprofit boards of directors focused on youth and philanthropy. So welcome, Malai. And then we have Thomas Anderson, who is Superintendent of East Hartford Public Schools, a proud native of East Hartford. He began his tenure as superintendent on July 1st of 2023. Before returning to his hometown, he served as superintendent of schools in New Bedford, Massachusetts for 5 years and in Randolph, Massachusetts for 4 years. His leadership experience also includes serving as an assistant superintendent in Washington, D.C., and as the founding principal and executive director of grade 7 through 12 charter school in Chicago's Altgeld Gardens neighborhood. His career in education began in Montgomery Public Schools, Maryland's largest district, where he taught high school English, coached track and field, cross country, and held administrative roles as an assistant principal and principal at the high school level. Thomas has served on numerous boards throughout his professional life and currently serves as a board member for the United Way of Central and Northeastern Connecticut. So again, welcome. So thrilled to have you all here and eager to dive into our conversation. And the first topic of our conversation is going to be in regard to the state of child literacy. And as we dive into our conversation, my first question is going to go out to Thomas. So Thomas, you grew up in East Hartford and are now superintendent of schools there. Can you talk to us a little bit about how your experience as a child in the school system compares to the experiences of those who are in it today? And more specifically, how do changing in different conditions impact student outcomes?
Hey, good afternoon. It's great to be here. We know literacy is such an extremely important topic. And as you mentioned, as a high school English teacher, it's not so much you're teaching students to read, but there's so many other things that are built in there. And I moved to East Hartford when I was in 3rd grade. And what still stands out, what I remember, is having to write a report about John Dillinger. And we selected the topic, but we also had some encyclopedias at home. Both of my parents worked in factories on the assembly line and those type of things, but understood and valued the educational process, but also when we think about reading. And so I think of those experiences then and what we have in East Hartford now. And there's a lot of economic changes just in terms of a lot of communities do change over time. But I look at the focus on literacy and the opportunities to provide students with those resources to pinpoint basically when we talk about how to read, but in terms of thinking of the science of reading, all the research and those type of things, but really getting students to have a clear understanding of comprehension. And I benefit from what I thought I may have known as a 8, 9, 10-year-old in the beginning in elementary school to some of the team members I have who there's one person who could sit and talk to you all day about this and really be informative about the early literacy process. But I think the work that we're doing now is speaking volumes in terms of the resources our schools are raising in proficient levels over this past year. And again, just having a clear understanding and knowing that, just the last point about, we can talk about the science of reading, but knowing there's no quick fix, and the science of reading is not a program, but it's research and getting everyone to understand how those things are. So appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for kicking us off with really that initial kind of local perspective. And I look forward to bringing the conversation back to you in just a few minutes. So let's go now to Iola Fortune of United Way Worldwide. And Iola, I was wondering if you could share with our community here a little bit more about how United Ways are using what's referred to as place-based approaches to address disparities in literacy outcomes across their different communities. And again, welcome.
Thank you, Jan. And thank you also to Susan, Paula, and Brandon for the opportunity to join today's discussion. And thank you most of all for your leadership and focus on the issue of literacy. At the heart of a place-based approach is understanding community context and being deeply rooted and informed by that context to co-create solutions with those who are most impacted by the issues we work on. And so we believe that United Ways are best positioned to advance place-based approaches to increasing literacy because we are a global network that is also hyper-local. Our network includes over 1,000 United Ways in 36 countries. Most United Ways are based in communities across the United States. So almost every community in the US has a United Way. So we have scale. But being hyperlocal also means that each United Way is deeply embedded in their communities and have built relationships that enable them to bring community stakeholders together across private, public, and nonprofit sectors to address the critical issue of reading. Over the past 2 years, if you pull back the lens, United Ways have invested over $619 million to support children and youth from birth to 21. And a significant portion of those dollars have gone to support efforts focused on the early years and literacy. And so the issue of reading, we do that. Paula expounded on the why and made a compelling case for why it's so important to focus on this issue. We know it's a common challenge in our educational system across the US, and United Ways employ common strategies. If you look at us as a network, we employ common strategies and invest significant resources to address it. And our common approaches include many of the programs you see in evidence in United Way of Central and Northeastern Connecticut, starting early. So one of our primary core strategies is to increase access to high quality early learning programs, early learning environments, early childhood programs. 80% of our network that works in the space of birth to 21 is focused on early childhood access to high quality programs. But it also includes strengthening family engagement and ensuring that families have the tools, resources, and information to support their child's development, providing access to books in the home. So our colleagues in Northeastern and Central Connecticut are not alone. They are one of over 160 United Ways that are using Dolly Parton Imagination Library to provide books in the home to children 5 and under. Others may use First Book or other book distribution programs, but that is a very common approach. Increasing access to summer programs so we can address summer learning loss, especially in reading, and then engaging volunteers and tutors to support reading. So those are common strategies and approaches that you will see prevalent across our network. But localization means that we don't take a one-size-fits-all approach. And so each United Way is implementing this common set of strategies, but how they implement them varies based on a couple things. Local data. So what is your community data telling you about the prevalence of the issue, where the gaps are? In some communities, they may look at it by zip code. You may also look at it in terms of specific populations like low-income students or English language learners. So that's one thing. Community need, especially families of young and school-age children, to understand how do they see the issue? What do they see as the barriers to school readiness and literacy? And what do they see as the solutions to address it? Our local partners. So who are the partners on the ground that you can convene and collaborate with that have a stake and are committed to the issue of strengthening literacy? In most communities, surely that includes local schools and school leaders, but there are also other specific partners that may vary across communities depending on existing efforts and relationships. And in some places, United Way may be the lead. In other places, there may be a literacy coalition or other community-based organization that is leading, and United Way is playing a supporting role. And a couple other things I'll identify is identifying and prioritizing focus on specific students that are furthest away from reading on grade level. So that could look like several elementary schools within a district. That could be a particular feeder pattern within a school system, or by zip code or by neighborhood. That's what being place-based means. Localizing our strategies so that how we implement those common strategies and approaches reflects what is most needed on the ground. So that might be prioritizing a specific strategy or implementing a blend of strategies to holistically address those multiple interconnected needs of children and families. And finally, being evidence-based and outcomes focused. We're data-driven as a network, and this means continually assessing what is and what is not working, what research tells us, and how that might need to be adapted locally. So we're looking at data all the time, both locally and globally, in terms of the position I hold, to see how we're tracking on improving those developmental outcomes. So I will stop there.
Yeah, I mean, very powerful response. I mean, so much incredible data. And part of what I'm reflecting on now as I think about what you shared is, context is king, right? You hear that often, but this whole notion of the scale and reach that you were describing across 36 countries, and then that hyper local presence across so many communities, right? Across the United States. And we know how diverse the United States is alone. So it really is impressive and very informative. Thank you so much. My next question is for Malai and for Thomas. And given what Iola just shared with us, I think this is kind of an appropriate next place to go. So I'm going to start with Malai, and I would love it if you could share with us, when you think about your partnerships with our local United Way, what has been the most meaningful from your perspective? We'll start with Malai, and then we'll go to Thomas.
All right. Thanks, Jan. Also, thanks to the team for providing this opportunity to share out. I appreciate it. So I'm just going to reflect a little bit on what Iola stated, because as I think about the partnerships that we have with United Ways nationally, points that she brought up are the most meaningful ways that I can see that we engage with those United Ways. So there are three primary things that I'm really thinking about and what's resonating with me. Number one is that United Ways by far play the largest constituency group who are acting as our coalition leads throughout all of our campaign for grade level reading communities. That is in part due to the unique role that United Way plays in each of the communities, where they may be the funder, they may also be the convener of partners who are doing the work within the coalitions. They may also do programs out in the community and coordinate those volunteers who are necessary for those programs. And in some cases, United Ways are playing all three of those roles. And so for our partnership with United Way across the board, it feels to me like we would not be able to do the work that we do at scale without United Ways as a very key partner, with 350 plus communities across our network, and almost 200 of those being United Ways as playing a key role as either the constituency lead or as a funder. It's vitally critical that we have United Ways within that network. Number two is that United Ways provide meaningful content that we can then share throughout our network. So the things that Paula had brought up, some of those unique strategies that are happening within your community are things that I can then uplift through our national scale and networks. We have weekly webinars where we're sharing out various strategies, and Iola has played a role in several of those webinars where we are looking at things from a very national perspective. We have 300, 400, sometimes 500 attendees at our webinars who are hearing these strategies. And the content that is provided for those webinars comes directly from United Ways and local coalitions. And so without that, I feel that it would be a struggle for us to make the kind of impact that we make as the national campaign without that conduit of information and content from United Ways. Number three is the data source. So oftentimes we do also reflect on having data-driven approaches, and United Ways are sometimes those key partners with local school districts to provide the kind of data that we need to show that certain strategies are working, and then to be able to reflect that back to our funders, our constituency groups, and the people who invest in us as a national campaign. We need to be able to have that local lens to be able to do that. So that's what I would say would be those three things of how there is meaning in those relationships with United Ways.
Great. Thank you, Malai, and welcome again. Thomas,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, so I guess listen to what Malai was saying, and we look at as we are the school district. So I think a huge component is that our thinking is aligned. And when you have the readers come in those different events, really giving them the opportunity also to see what's actually taking place in the classrooms. And the mutual benefit that we have, when they're able to come in and see how that work is impacting, that first grader that they're able to sit with and getting a better understanding of that child's, working vocabulary versus the list of words we may think they should have to master by the time they finish kindergarten or first grade, but really having like I said, a clearer picture of all of the research and all of those other things that exist. But now you're in real time as the practitioner sitting in that room, having that conversation with that child, asking questions, digging a little bit deeper when we talk about the, cultivating of critical and analytical thinking skills. So that level of partnership, and again, and I have to say it again, as far as the aligned thinking component and a true level of collaboration. And we know that, data speaks and we have all those types of things, but really getting the individuals together to really see what's truly happening in our schools. So we're grateful for that level of collaboration. That is what is most meaningful to us in part of that process.
Thank you so much, Thomas. And, as I think about what you just shared and what Malai had highlighted, part of what jumped out at me is United Way as an accelerant for your efforts and impact, a support, a partner, and an entity that can help make it real for the people who are engaging with students, right? One-on-one in the classroom, et cetera. So thank you. Thank you again. And I'd love to actually throw my next question to you on a bit of a different topic, Thomas. And the topic is really around volunteerism as a catalyst. I know a lot of folks who are on the call today are here because they're really interested in having an impact, maybe getting more involved or just deepening what they're doing. So one of the things I'd love to ask you is, how do you see volunteer readers impacting students in your district, not just academically, but emotionally, socially?
Yeah, it's a great point. We look at, as we're a school system, so as an academic institution, but also understanding that if we can't just say the whole child, we have to really act upon that and do it. So we know the social component is critically important. And just as an example, when we have on those special days, but in general, when the volunteers come in, they're able to see what I hope is themselves when they were in first grade or kindergarten and thinking someone's coming in and they're reading, well, how is that perceived? Like what are we really getting out of that level of experience? And I think more so it's the engagement of conversation and having a volunteer that will have that opportunity to come in. We know that life's competing challenges across the board can make it difficult sometimes to come in. But my perspective is if you're able to come in, I don't care how many times you're able to come in, if you're able to commit to being able to come in and visit, the impact that you have on those students of just having them see another individual, another older individual outside of their immediate circle, talking about different things, talking about whatever the story was that they were reading, or just asking them questions about themselves, because we know during the school day, a lot of a teacher that they see frequently, but you have another person that you haven't really seen. You come in, there's that level of excitement. And another point about it is, those students, because when I go in and we visit and we chat about different things throughout the year, they feel special. They feel important that this individual took their time to come in. And we know that as a 7, 8-year-old, you don't really know how to articulate that. And sometimes as 30, 40, 50-year-old people, we don't always articulate that the right way either. And I think, but getting the students at that youngest age to be able to see others, and simply by being there just adds to that component of, the feeling good part of it, combined with everything else, the structure of learning to read, learning how to ask questions, and those type of things. So.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And one thing that I'll share with you real quick, and you made this memory come back to me as I was just listening to you. Is when I started at Travelers many, many years ago as a young professional, I raised my hand to volunteer as a tutor for local kids from elementary schools that we had a chance to meet with. And just being able to connect with a single student over the course of an academic year and get to know them and really create a trust and rapport, it was impactful, in terms of just your ability to tutor and show up for that person. But it really affected me. It shaped me, So thank you. Thank you for all that.
Thank you.
And my next question is for Iola. And the question that I have for Iola is, could you share a little bit about the role that volunteerism plays in United Way Worldwide's approach to improving educational outcomes?
Sure, and I'll just build on the personal experience you just shared, Jan, and it's really our role is how do we make those human connections happen a million times over? How do we do that at scale? Because it matters so much in the life of a child. And supporting, how many individuals and caring adults can we get to wrap their arms around young children and support their development? And so I'll share that volunteerism is essential. It's a core part of United Way's efforts to create community change. We can't do it without volunteers. It's that simple. And that includes when we're trying to strengthen and improve educational outcomes for children and youth. But we know it starts with engaging people to deepen their understanding and awareness of issues in their community, to hear what potential volunteers are most interested in. What do they want to be a part of? What change do they want to be a part of? And what opportunities can we create for them to serve in their communities? So that's something I feel like we do. It's part of our Spidey strength that I feel like we do well overall. On average, we engage over 700,000 volunteers every year across our global network. And that volunteerism takes on multiple forms. So I include in that the over 20,000 board members we have across our network who guide the overall strategic direction for local United Ways, including helping them to prioritize issues and being the champion of the organization's work. It also includes affinity groups like women leaders. We have many chapters of women leaders, and young leaders are our most common affinity groups. And often they are part of championing and advocating for specific issues. It also includes the volunteers who serve on our community impact councils and help inform strategic resource investments into the community. That work is vitally important, and those are volunteers that support that work. We have volunteers that serve as internal campaign coordinators, so they help to raise the resources that we then invest back into community. We have volunteers that lend a hand during crises and disasters. And we have volunteers that support specific programs and strategies. In education, that includes the volunteers who devote their time supporting and helping to organize specific events. So it can be discrete, like a day of caring or a stuff the backpack event. We also have volunteers, like many of your volunteers in Hartford, that commit over a longer period of time to advance our programmatic work. So that includes our readers in school, our volunteer readers, those who agree to serve as mentors for youth, or to support community schools efforts, which is also a common strategy within our network. So in ways big and small, I look at that whole landscape and tableau. We have volunteers that are core to the work that we do and that are making the outcomes that we seek possible.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And I'm incredibly struck by the over 700,000 volunteer figure that you shared for United Way worldwide. And thank you for providing the context for what constitutes a volunteer, right? From a board level leader all the way down to folks who are assisting in crisis and disaster situations and everything in between. So thank you for that. It's powerful. One of the things that I'd like to do is just pause for a moment and remind everybody in our audience that you are invited to share any questions, comments that you have by just clicking on the Q&A link that you see within Teams. We'll have a few minutes where we'll open up to anything that's on your mind specifically. So we invite you to be a part of the conversation in that way. And what I'd love to do next is shift up the topics that we've been talking about and transition over to the concept of philanthropy as a catalyst for literacy transformation. And the question that I'd like to throw out first in this category is really focused on something that I'd love to hear Malai's perspective on. And Malai, I'm curious, from your work with community coalitions, how does strategic philanthropy help local efforts aligned with national literacy goals and frameworks from what you've experienced?
All right. Thank you for that question. I really see the local investment as being vital. So the local philanthropy group or foundation or United Way, whomever might be playing that role, acts as a bridge, connecting the need, the thing that is happening within the community to the people who can make that work or who can address that particular need. So for example, we may provide at a national level, we may provide a framework, we may provide data, we may provide strategies, but those are all nice and good, but it takes people and it takes dollars and resources to be able to bring those to life within the local context of the work. And so while we may be providing those resources, it still takes a person dedicated to the coalition. It still takes a human being who can kind of drive the ship that's going to make a difference within that local community. And that's where the role of philanthropy, very much at a local level, can play a role, whether it be to fund that person or house the person who is leading the work and making that change or coordinating those volunteers. That's the role that philanthropy can play, and then provide that connection between the need that is happening at a greater level to the local investment that could really make a change or a difference. Another example could be like within some of our larger states, we have a group who funds not only the local work that's happening at the campaign level, but they may do something that's locally happening in 4 counties. So we do have a partnership with a foundation that provides supports through 4 counties, which we would not be able to do on our own, but there is a person who is then driving that ship. And so with the bridge metaphor, that is where I see that role for local philanthropy playing a very key part in making that impact towards literacy goals.
Great, thank you. Thank you for taking that kind of national ambition and translating it down to that local impact through your comments. So what I'd love to do is invite all 3 of our panelists to respond to this next question on this whole topic around philanthropy as a catalyst. And I'd love to ask each of you, what message would you share with philanthropists who are looking to make a meaningful impact in early childhood education, but aren't sure where to start? And Malai, maybe if it's okay, we'll start with you and let you add on to your last response and get us going on this one.
Yeah, for sure. This will be music to everybody's ears. I'm going to say connect with your United Way, because it's usually the United Way that has those partnerships with school districts, or also with the business sector, who can cultivate the volunteering that is necessary to provide programs like Read Across America, or Reading with Children, or also book distribution events. And so my first step, if I were someone who really wanted to connect with that need, would be to find my United Way, to figure out who is the person in that United Way who might be able to help me know where I can direct my talent and my treasure and my time.
Great, thank you for that. Iola, would you like to jump in next?
Well, thank you so much, Malai. I promise you that I did not pay her to say that, but always great to hear the value spoken from our longtime partners. So I'll choose something different, which is start by informing yourself. Get informed. What are the biggest challenges that children face in your community? And this information, yes, is likely available from your local United Way, as well as other local nonprofit advocacy and research organizations. And then at the national level, we have philanthropies and research organizations like Annie E. Casey and Child Trends, who do a wonderful job of looking at data and making that data available on how children and youth are faring on issues like child poverty, kindergarten readiness, access to high quality early childhood programs. And Casey's data is available by county, by congressional district, by city. And so it's just a great way to sort of immerse yourself and strengthen your own understanding of the resources available. And I'll add one more, which is related to Malai's comment, which is to tap into existing resources. So we have women, I mentioned women and young leaders affinity groups throughout our network that are all the time identifying issues, making strategic investments in their community. And for the last year of data that we have available, we had 48,000 women participating in our women leaders groups, and women are on the leading edge of philanthropy. Those women gave a combined $139 million to invest in our community impact efforts. And so that is women giving, and leading and giving is growing, and that's a powerful network within United Way to tap into.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thomas, over to you.
I was trying to think, and piggybacking on what both of these ladies are saying, well, we definitely like to tap into the $139 million that currently exists. But really thinking of, and I think it was Malai when we said, or maybe both of you touched on it, as far as educating yourself, being very informed about what's happening on a national level, but also understanding what's happening at your local school. So being the school system person and having been a teacher and having those roles and have been in different parts of the country, we're all looking, all school systems and communities are looking for the same thing. They want all of their children to be able to cultivate and develop their own social capital, and how they understand, how to get there in terms of equipping themselves with, the right critical and analytical thinking skills. I mean, those things just kind of go without saying. But really the part about what's the impact and understanding what the data means, not just listening to what you may hear reported in the news, because then when we bring you into our schools and you're able to see what's actually occurring, sometimes it doesn't make sense. It's like there's something is missing as far as what's happening versus what's being tested on the end. And I think also getting into it and seeing how we need to make strategic investments. My focus would be, hey, contact me. We can have all those conversations about it as you could with any of your, local school systems, but really getting a clear understanding about what those needs are and being strategic about it. And not just saying we want everyone to have access, but what does access look like? Because it's on different levels. And the challenges that we end up having today are so far, they're more economic. We know everything else factors into it, but economics are truly impacting all the equitable practices for students that have learned different learning styles, special needs, learning English, like all of those types of things. So I guess the real point is just being well informed and truly understanding what's the impact you're looking for, and just reach out and start having some of those initial conversations.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I mean, thematically across what all three of you shared, that whole notion of, take action and understand the issues, right? Understand the data, back to the earlier discussion around context, right? Depending on the way you want to get involved, whether it's, more broadly or more local, right? Really, really understand that contextually, and then get involved. There's lots of ways to get involved, right? We talk a lot about time, talent, and treasure. And so great advice there for philanthropists. So as we start to wind down our conversation, one of the things that I would love to do is throw another question to all three of you. And here I'm going to give you a little bit of a choice in terms of which direction you take your reflections and your response. But I'd be interested in hearing if there's one story that has personally inspired you in this work to improve literacy outcomes, or if you would like to instead share a hope that attendees can take away from today's conversation around what we've been discussing. So I'll let you guys jump in as you'd like to, just in case you're thinking about what you'd like to share instead of calling on you.
Can I go? I'm ready.
Yeah, start us off.
All right, thanks, Jan. So the story that I have is from my time when I was at United Way of Story County. So that's, for folks who don't know where that is, that's in Iowa. So my story is about the time that I did the most terrifying speech that I've ever done in my life. And just know that I've done presentations for 500 plus people. I've done some really scary things that most people have not experienced. But this particular one was, I was called to meet with children, a full student body, K through sixth grade, in a small gym in Iowa, a very rural setting, to accept a presentation, one of those big checks. They had raised money and donations to go back into their local community. And so they were donating that to our United Way, and we would then be directing that for books that would get directed into the schools across our county region. And so I was there to do a thank you and to also provide just some context about why. And I was petrified because those kids were all in the gym. They were all staring at me. They were all wiggly because they were kindergartners and first graders and second graders. And so the reflection that I have is why it stuck with me is because after I provided my, hey, thank you, this is a really tremendous thing, then they gifted me with a song and dance that they choreographed, and that's why it sticks in my mind, about why reading is important, about how grateful they were and how that really helped to build their character. And their dance was really adorable, but it just blew me away with how the thing that we were doing was really impacting these children greatly, that they took time out of their day to collect quarters and then make a big check and then present that. And it provided that meaning. So when I said that there was a connection and a bridge between the need and the people who can get that thing done, I saw that really clearly demonstrated, and I saw it in the faces of the kids that we were impacting. So that's really what stuck with me.
What a beautiful story. And I wonder if part of the reason why they were so wiggly was they couldn't wait to get up and dance for you.
Maybe. Maybe.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that.
So I'll go next. And since Malai shared a story, I'll share a hope. And my hope, and I think hope is important to have, because without hope, I don't think we get change. And I hope that this conversation leaves you feeling like, going back to the title of this discussion, is that your voice matters. Your time and your treasure matter, that you can make a meaningful difference in the lives of children and people in your community. And I hope you reach back to your own stories and your own experiences and think about when you were impacted in such a way. And hopefully that fuels you thinking about that, because I think it's through all of your efforts that we can make that collective impact on improving not only literacy, but ultimately the lives of young people, so that they grow up successful and enter into adulthood.
Thank you, Iola.
And I think what I'll add, so I'll since I have the unique opportunity to kind of be inspired every day, because I can just we think about time. I can schedule my time and make sure I can get into one of the elementary schools and see those kindergartners. And you think about the hopes and dreams and those type of things. And I think, Jan, you mentioned time, talent, and treasure. I think really, as we look to see how do we spend our time, what is it that we plan, what's within our sphere of influence to get people in there to see about taking advantage of the talent that exists in all the different organizations, especially with the United Way, and having the opportunity and supporting volunteers to be able to come in. And that last component, you talk about treasure, it's what do we embrace? What is it that we really want people to take away and, a hope for the future? We're in a unique space in our world, period, and just getting it where are we aligned in our thinking about how we cultivate the next generation, change the current generation's thinking of just saying, what is it that we need to do that's going to be for the common good? And, working with the United Way and some of those other things of having those individuals come in, I think that's been a huge opportunity. But like I said, I have a unique opportunity every day to be able to go in there. So you're constantly inspired over and over.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And I'm so grateful for just all the wisdom that you've shared. And I know we didn't have as much time for Q&A today as we were hoping for, but I do want to make sure that Eric Harrison has an opportunity to jump in with what he has to share and close us out. So again, thank you so much for a rich conversation.
Thanks, Jan. Every book opened, every hour volunteered, every dollar given, it all adds up to something extraordinary. And I just love what Iola said about hope, because I really do believe the United Way Network is about hope. It's aspirational and it's bold to say that we are united to end poverty, but that's something that we feel we need to claim as an organization and as a network. So we're building bridges. We're going to keep walking forward. We're going to keep coming together because we know that a future where every child can read, dream, and succeed is the one that we want to see in our 860 region. And I did just want to say, personally, I have a 2.5-year-old son. It's actually my favorite part of the day, getting home as soon as I can. Hopefully I can get there before he goes to bed at 7:30. But it's something that I cherish. And I know that when he goes to elementary school, our town in the Farmington Valley has a very different level of reading proficiency, and we're proud of that, in our community. But that should be no different than a child in New Britain or any other one of the townships in our 56 township region. So we're committed to ending poverty in the 860 region. We're going to unite the community around that. We're going to use time, talent, and treasure. But by showing up today, you've actually shown us that you're ready to play an important role in these efforts, and we hope that you will continue to do so. So the funds that are raised through Women of Tocqueville and the United Way campaign are creating lasting opportunities. That these funds help us innovate, they help us evolve, and they also help ensure that we are responsive and that we are efficient with those funds. So looking ahead, we're going to continue to invest in proven solutions. We're going to forge strategic partnerships like we have in our past and together for the future. And those strategies are the ones that can help us lift people out of poverty with an increased focus on that collective impact. So we're very mindful that no one organization can do this alone, but we are determined to accomplish systems level change as an organization that helps eliminate poverty. So we're incredibly grateful for the support on everyone on the call today. I do want to say a special thanks to Paula and Susan for their leadership and cultivation of Women of Tocqueville since its founding. I think we're probably one of the only United Ways where all three CEOs for the past 2 decades are together on a call supporting our work, but I think it speaks to the legacy of this organization and the leaders who have led it throughout the decades. So we're incredibly grateful for all the time and energy you put into making this group of philanthropists grow. And we really hope this event is a culmination of all of that dedication. And so now we're going to actually officially pass the torch to our new Women of Tocqueville chair, Jan Turner. And I've had the pleasure of working with Jan. Jan was actually a part of our strategic planning committee that helped develop Onward 860 and also United to End Poverty. So we're really excited to have you, Jan. So thank you again for all of your time. We appreciate everyone for coming out today. We know you're busy people. So we hope that what you've heard today has been an inspiration. And if you'd like to get more involved, we welcome you to reach out and learn more. So thanks again. Thanks again for joining us. Have a great day.